to the podcast, Ashley, Nadine. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Ashley is a best-selling author. She's been given an advocacy award from the mayor of Los Angeles. She has preached in revivals in LA. I love watching her do her thing. I love watching God use her. And I thought it'd be fitting to have you on the first ever podcast.
Yes.
I'm so glad to have you.
I'm so thankful to be here, but honestly, more than anything, I am so grateful that you're finally walking out your calling in life.
Thank you.
I think this has been a long time overdue, but you're such a natural and you're gifted. And so this is like an honor just as much to be here with you. You're a great speaker. You have a lot going on. And it's amazing. I think that I just want to say this real quick because I recently found out who you really are. I had no idea that you were training tons of people in the insurance company industry, and I'm going, what? And you're leading this, and you're impacting lives on the daily. And I saw this video, and I go, look, this is who you are, you know. So I'm so grateful to be here with you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. You know, I feel like most people are unaware of who people really are because social media can be such a facade for most people. And some people post too much and they only post the good things, and then some people don't post anything. You know, my wife is an amazing singer, Maricela Rayford, and you know, it's funny because she got a taste of her own medicine the other day. She was at a coffee shop and this lady was singing happy birthday to someone.
Wow.
And my wife was totally astounded. Like, she's an amazing singer. She went and introduced herself. What's your handle? You know, I want to look you up. But when she went, there was no evidence of her singing like that.
Wow.
And my wife was like frustrated, like, I want to hear her and I can't. And I was like, how do you think people feel when they look at your stuff?
That's good. Yeah.
You know? She's singing in front of 3,000 people this week. And to know that, you know, so she's been posting now because it was like, you have people that want to see you sing.
It's a really fine line because it's like, you know, social media can be used for really horrible things, right? But then there's people like that do want to glorify God and really have the right intentions to do so. So I just think, like, for me, because I've been through this journey, like, there's been times where I'm like, I have to check my heart and be like, wait a second, like, am I posting this to, like, you know, get my own, get my clout, or am I really posting this, you know? And I walked through that journey and I realized, like, more recently, I'm like, I just want to do God's will. Like, to be honest, Luke, like, I've been walking this thing out with God for so long, but this is like the first year of my life that I feel like I've truly surrendered every area. Like, I've always held on to like a little bit of something, you know, whether it be a relationship or something in my business, you know what I mean? But this is the first year that I said, God, not my will, but your will be done. Not my vision board, but your vision for my life, you know? And it's hard as a motivated person because I'm like, I got X, Y, I got timelines, I got goals, like, but this is the first year. And you know what's crazy? A lot of my life fell apart.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it did. In certain areas, you know, and other areas are blessed. And I know that God's hand is in certain areas. And I always say, if you know that God is watering that grass, that field, then you keep tending to that place.
Right.
But if there's a well that's dried up, then walk away from it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't go knocking on closed doors behind you. Focus on the ones that are ahead.
That's so good. You know, I think there's an issue in the body of Christ of like, not wanting to give God glory. And it's not from a sense of like, I don't want to give him glory, but it's like they feel ashamed if they're doing something good because there's always the people in the comment section like, you're showing off, or, you know, we always say like, you should have friends that it doesn't feel like you're bragging when you tell them what's going on with your life.
Wow.
Because if you have it creates jealousy, it creates envy, and especially if people aren't doing anything or putting in the work, it's like they look at you like, oh, well, I'm working this dead-end job and you're out here, but they don't see the late nights. They don't see the betrayals. They don't see everything that you've walked through.
Man.
And along with what you said, you know, I think God has to tear down some things that we built. Because he didn't build it, we built it. Yeah, I'm learning that.
Yeah, that's such a real conversation because we're human, you know what I mean? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to, at times, walk in our own will, our own agenda and things like that. But like you said, it's like, if you stay close to the Holy Spirit and you're very spirit-led instead of emotionally led, I think that's when you tap into that real, like, the fullness of God. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really walking this thing out.
Right.
But it's a daily walk, right?
Yeah.
It's a daily thing to really submit
100%.
yourself to God and like be like, all right, like today I gotta do this again.
Right.
Lay down,
again,
pick up my
every
cross
day.
again every day. And some days we fall short and aren't, the best at it.
His mercies are new every morning.
Amen.
One thing I didn't say is you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're a go-getter, you're a hustler, and there's a group of people that really identify with that. There's a group of people that just know they're meant for more, and they're not settling. They know that just because they work at the post office doesn't make them that. That's not their identity. When God designed them, He didn't put that on them, It pays the bills. What would you say to someone who is maybe fighting and starting a business right now, or like thinking or maybe afraid? What would you say to them?
I would say do it afraid. And I'm a perfect testimony of that, because when I started my business, I had no education on how to do so. I had never been in business before, and on top of that, I was broke, busted, and disgusted living at home with my parents. My life had fallen apart. I had just actually hit a big step in Las Vegas. I was being awarded as like the top fashion stylist. I was working for America's Next Top Model. I had all these awards and accolades, and then the Lord said, "I'm calling you to California." I was in my friend Monica's bathroom, and the Lord said, "I'm calling you to California."
Wow.
And my whole life just suddenly, it was like one thing after the next, and I couldn't stop. I could not stop it. No matter what I tried to do, God got me to California. But what I didn't know is that there was a blessing and a setup waiting for me at that destination, and I wasn't there yet. I was working a job in Vegas. When I got to California, I had nothing. So all I did was like say, God, like, what do you want me to do? And so I started a nonprofit organization, and I was raising awareness for human trafficking. Started door knocking, asking people to be my sponsors at my event.
Wow.
And I met this really cute elderly woman who owned a bridal shop. I asked her to be a sponsor at my event.
Wow.
And do you want to know that a week later she calls me and she's like, I don't know anybody better than to give my legacy and pass down my legacy to than you. And wow. I had just, like, I wasn't friends with her for very long,
Right.
But I knew that was God.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, she felt led to pass down what she had been doing for before I was even born.
Wow.
And give it to me.
Wow.
And that's how I became a business owner. So
that's so crazy, because I've always wondered, like, why the weddings
bridal.
And like how did that happen, and that is such a cool God story.
It is. For me, it's so deep, because if you think about like my past, right, and where I've come from before I was saved,
BC,
and it's like God gave me this bridal shop to even show me prophetically how He saw me.
Wow.
So there's times where, like, when I'm struggling with my identity and I go down in my shop and I'm like, okay, God, I'm surrounded by wedding dresses. Like, there's no way that I should be viewing myself as that past person.
Right.
Because God sees me as the bride of Christ. God sees me as a businesswoman. God sees me as an entrepreneur. He wouldn't have gave it to me if He didn't think I could handle it.
Right.
With Him.
Right.
In partnership with Him.
Right.
But going back to what you were saying is, like, even if you don't have the experience, it's the faith walk, God isn't checking your bank account. He's checking your faith.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So things will just start to happen. People will start to call. Connections will. It's you just taking that one step of obedience and that leading to the next step, to the next.
Right. That's so powerful. Because I think people forget the faith. It's like, hey, move to Cali. Would you uproot and leave everything and go? And it's, some people can't do the first step, so they never experience the second.
That's so good.
It's like a GPS. God doesn't give you the whole plan. And the reason why is you'd be afraid. If you saw where you are now and He showed you that then, you probably would have never jumped.
So good. I am just thinking of people that I know that God has literally called them to make a move, to make a move. And Some of them have, and they're still waiting to see what the Lord has.
Yeah.
And other ones are still in the same place saying, God, when, why? And it's like the Lord had already spoke to you.
Yeah.
First, you got to do that and then see what happens once you go,
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
It's obedience.
Man, you know, it's funny because I look back on our past, and we were in Texas, my wife and I, and we felt like God was pulling us to Vegas, but we didn't know exactly because me and you met in Vegas, and here we are in Texas, which is crazy. And so
This is great.
We were in comfortable, you know, we had good paying jobs. And it's funny when you start making moves and you feel like it's like the devil unloads blessings. Like I had like a 6-figure job offer, and then like we had all these things. I'm like, okay, this could get really good and comfortable.
Wow.
But comfort there's no faith in comfort.
Wow.
And so we ended up making the jump. We came out to Vegas, and I want to say this because we got into doubt because people we love and cared about didn't want us to leave. And you have to get to a point where you're like, I'd rather be obedient to God and you be mad at me.
Wow.
Than me stay where I'm not supposed to be.
That is so good. I think that you guys walking out your faith is, you and your wife are a beautiful picture of what marriage is supposed to look like. Like, I mean, the way she supports you, the way that I feel like she's just the best helpmate, you know? And then with you, like you are always representing Chella. Like you're like her biggest cheerleader, like her biggest fan. I'm like, you know, oh, my wife, she could sing, she could worship. Like, I think you guys just are always like lifting each other up, and it's not common. I've encountered a lot of people in my lifetime, and to hear the words of affirmation that you exemplify to one another is totally beautiful. It's so awesome. Beautiful.
You know, I think that it goes back to culture and training. And in business, we teach edification, and it's like, who am I sitting with? This isn't just Ashley Nadine. This is a representative of the kingdom of God. She's a business owner. She's an entrepreneur. She's a best-selling author. I could say so many good things of you, because who says the bad things? The enemy. And I don't want to sound like him anymore. You know, there's been times where I did that, and I've had people notice, and you're probably the second person this month who's noticed that I uplift certain people, and it's like a culture of honor and respect.
Very much.
And I want to do it, especially to someone who's respectable and deserving of honor, and you've done things that can be admired because your story, you know, if you don't know the story, I highly recommend you look up Ashley Nadine and her story, because it's a powerful story, and you have every ability to be a victim and to sit in it, but you didn't. And you became a victor, and you're still walking through it. You're still overcoming. And so walk me through that. Like, we talked about identity a little bit. I want to go back to that. Like, the wedding dresses reminded you of who you are and who God says you are. And you know, I think a lot of times you get to share your story, but it's time to share who you are.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that there was a point, because I am a human trafficking survivor, that I almost felt like I got like just stuck in this season of just sharing my story over and like reliving this trauma, you know, and it wasn't until recently where the Lord started saying, no. There's dimension to you. There's more to you.
Yeah.
And I was actually on Emily Ford's podcast when the real breakthrough had happened. It was very recent. And she looked at me and she goes, Ashley, she's like, when you get up on stage, she said, I got ministered to. Now, this is a woman that I look up to. She's been on with Tony Robbins and like the greats of, you know what I mean? I'm going, wait, what? So when she said that though, and she said, you're anointed, like it hit my spirit, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, like I felt like at that moment, I was like, I have something more than just my story.
Right.
You know, and so recently God has been opening up huge doors, like humongous doors.
I see that.
And I'm just so grateful, you know, but the truth is I'm not my past at all.
Yeah.
I'm not. And there is a lot of dimension to me, but that's only because I am in Him now, you know, like it. When you become you're supposed to be Christ-like, right? We're made in His image, and you are who you spend the most time with.
Right.
So if you're spending time with God, I'm getting this revelation right now. If you're spending time with God, you're becoming more Christ-like, and you're becoming more like Him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. It's like who you been hanging with.
Who you been hanging with?
Yeah.
Are you hanging with Jesus in the secret place?
You can tell. I've seen it in the past. Like I watch someone grow, and then they go hang around the wrong people, even for a short period of time.
Right.
Since 4 days, you've been hanging around the wrong people. There's evidence of who you've been with.
Wow.
That you can tell.
That's so good.
It's like, you've been hanging with them.
Right.
Like your energy's off. You're and I was curious with you, like, what drives Ashley? Like, what's your like end game? Like, what's the goal?
Wow.
I know it's deep.
I know it is deep. It's deep. Well, as much as I love ministry, and my daughter is 17 now, so she's going to college. I want to be married.
Okay.
I do. I see myself really serving God next to a partner.
A man of God.
A man of God. A man of God.
Qualifications,
right,
gentlemen.
Right. Yes. But truly, I'm at that place in my life where I've worked a lot, and I'm really big on Celebrate Recovery.
Okay.
Working my program, which, for me is a lot of healing, a lot of diving in deep. The step studies are a year each. I've done 3 of them. Okay. I still go to therapy every Wednesday.
Wow.
So I'm very much emotionally available, emotionally present, aware of my triggers. Like, there's a lot of things that I've worked on.
Right.
And now I feel ready. Now I'm like, okay, not that I'm perfect or I still need the Lord to do, but I'm ready. I'm like, I've put in the work. It's like when you hit the gym and you get in that bicep, you're like, I work for this, man. Like, not me, but I'm just saying, you put the work in. And so at this point, I'm like, I'm ready. I don't think that God blessed me with a bridal boutique to not have that myself one day.
Yeah, to give it, just to give it away and never have it. Yeah, no, that's a good thing. So it seems like you're more of like, I would like a husband that has a vision.
Absolutely.
And to serve in that vision, because you're kind of one of those ones where maybe guys are intimidated because they see you and you're traveling and you're in Hollywood and you're at all the mansion parties and you're being a light wherever you go, and God's using you. And so I think in your place where you are, you're like, I don't know who wants to step up into this. Like who wants to be a leader where you're going.
That's good.
And it's okay as a man to be the backup dancer. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Like no one knows who Joyce Meyer's husband is. Like we know he exists.
Right.
But
Right.
You got to be the face.
Yeah.
So what was it like to overcome what you came through, like and to actually use the skill sets and the street smarts, and because you come with wisdom, you come with, how has that helped you in business?
That is a great question. I think, what's funny is that I think that serving in ministry first has actually helped me become a better people person, relationally. Here's what I think. I think when you really put people first in business, the money will come, the success will come, because you genuinely care. You put people before dollars. Right. And when you do that, you'll be blessed, Yeah. Like when my clients come in and they're looking for a wedding dress, it's like, of course, I want to make I got bills to pay,
Right.
But when I just let all that go and I'm just there with her and I'm like, okay, what do I really feel like is going to be the perfect dress for her? You know what I mean? And I get in my zone and I get in my gift. Like, that's where I'm like, okay. And then it just flows. And then it's so easy. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I think ministry prepared me for business.
So were you ministry prior to falling away?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I was in ministry. I was in full-time ministry. I actually ran a ministry home.
Really?
Yeah, I had women living with me. There was a missionary that came to stay.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in Vegas serving in ministry full-time.
It's so crazy because I feel like I was watching Kat Von D's testimony last night, right? And I forgot the name of the podcast she was on, but I just love her story, But it's people leave God. I remember I left God. I remember I was raised in church, and I remember believing the lie, like, what did he say? This is a voice I really heard. He was like, you'll never make it to heaven.
Whoa.
Like, you're never going to make it because you're not perfect. You're not. And I didn't understand that Jesus was the perfection that I needed.
Wow.
I didn't understand. So I left. And literally within within 2 weeks of that, I was dealing drugs in San Antonio, Texas. I lived in Phoenix, got kicked out of school. Like, my life went on a downward spiral. And I think to understand, this is maturity, to understand that it's not better on the other side. The grass is not greener. Like you said, tend it, get better, because it's like when you crack open the door, the devil always takes you further than you want to go.
Wow. Yeah, don't even play with
Yeah,
it.
don't
even resist temptation, right? Resist the devil and he will flee. That's so good, though. I think that it's good because I think it maybe even speaking to people that are thinking about maybe walking away from God, or maybe they're frustrated because it's not going the way they thought or fast enough or whatever it is, you know. And you just got to hold on. You just got to really trust in the Lord when it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And I think what happens is people think that when you give your life to Christ, it gets easy. They think that, rainbows and butterflies and gumdrops and streets of gold. And it's like, no, we're in a war.
Right.
This is not a safe zone.
Right.
Earth is not a safe zone. We're designed to take dominion here.
Yes.
And I have this crazy story, and I don't share it much, and I think now would be a good time to pull it out. But I had a friend a long time ago who was a runner back in the day, and he would run drugs across the border. And I would always try to tell him, like, bro, like, it's fine. Like, I know it's fast money, but it could hurt you, right? He didn't care. And he kept coming up to my desk, and I just kept being a light to him. And one day he came up to my desk, and he was crying. And he was like, I'm coming to your church on Sunday.
Wow.
And he goes, God better be there. And I was like, he's going to be there. You better be there. That's what I told him.
Wow.
He comes Sunday, and he cries like a baby the entire service. Wow. God, like, rocked him. The next day, he quit working with me. Like, immediately quit. And I don't know why this happens, but it always happens. I invite people to church to get saved, and then they quit. It's like they can't be around me at that point. So anyways, I find out a month later he was killed by the Border Patrol.
Oh, my gosh.
Running drugs across the border.
Yeah.
And I like to think that him laying on the ground, he was able to say, God, I messed up.
Right.
Like, I'm so sorry.
Right.
And I'm not writing it off like he ain't in heaven.
Right.
He messed up. He made a bad mistake, and a real bad mistake, and hopefully, you know, he's up there. But I know that I'm so thankful that I didn't back down from his bad thinking.
Yeah, you spoke up.
I still spoke up. I held my ground. I will never regret that.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that I agreed, because when you play with the devil, you don't always win. And you might win a couple times. You might win for a season. Yep. But the end game is you.
Yep.
They play for keeps.
Yeah, they play, exactly.
They play for keeps.
There's so much in that story that is to unpack there. Number one, it reminds me of like the criminals next to Jesus on the cross, right?
I got goosebumps.
Yeah, I felt that when you shared that. That's what came to my mind, and it reminds me of that moment, because they were dying at that time, right? They were hung already. Yeah. They had moments to decide, and Jesus showed up in that moment. I believe that for your friend. You know, I don't think it was a coincidence. I don't believe in those anymore. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So I truly believe your friend had a moment. You know, and there's a reason why he went to church that day and gave his life to God.
But you know, I have all these stories I've accumulated over the years, and just testimonies to God's goodness.
Right.
You know, and it's like everyone has a decision. Right. You know, and fear can't be the way. And, you know, a lot of people get depressed, right? So let's backtrack. He was depressed because he wasn't making the money he wanted to make. But maybe God had a business idea for him. Wow. Maybe God had an idea that was on his heart, but it was so lofty that he didn't think it could happen. And I think sometimes he gives us, because like you said, he don't check your bank account. Right. Like, you were blessed with the business. Right. Like, I assume this was a pretty wealthy lady. Yeah. Who hooked you up. Yeah. We all need a wealthy lady to hook us up in life. Yes. No, well, but I always say that, like, you're one person away from your whole life changing. So good. You're one phone call away. You're one person away. You're one encounter away. You're one circumstance away from your whole life changing. Wow. It's true. You know, I feel like in business, a lot of people, they go into it with a me mentality, and you were talking about serving. And I have found in my life and in business and in making connections and networking, the key is adding value. Absolutely. Like, when you can bring value to someone else, it inspires them to do business with you. it creates opportunity. No one wants a one-night stand in business.
Nobody.
Nobody wants that, you know, and it's like, okay, I care about you. I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy, you know, doing little things. Like it's like you said, when you get in the zone, when you're like, oh, my client wants this, you're like, that's where you're complete, because you're operating in your gifts and your talents. And, you know, Romans 12 talks about how we all have different gifts. And some have a gift to teach, some have a gift to serve, some have, you know, it's like everybody's different. And I've noticed that it seems like sometimes people who don't have that gift will judge people who aren't walking in another gift that they have.
Right, that they have, not noticing that they can have different gifts.
Yeah,
and
I can't be mad at my hand for not being a foot.
Wow.
And I feel like that happens, and then you get the Twitter fingers, you know, Pharisee comments, and, you know, it's like it's the generation we live in where people can do nothing for God and be talking trash in the comment section, right?
Right.
It's like,
yeah, that's so good. You know, and I will say this because I did business with you because I got my insurance policy from you and Chella because there was value there. Like you knew what you were talking about. Chella definitely, she went into details for me. I was like, oh, I'm here. Let me sign up, you know? And then I think, like you said, the friendship value had been there. So you had already built the trust and credibility. And so, you know, all it was is in the details, and you guys added value. And I mean, so, you know, here I am. And so I'm just saying that you really do walk out what you're talking about. You do.
It's funny you say that, because even how we met, I was adding value to someone, which allowed me to get in the door.
Wow.
So I was a photographer.
That's right.
Marcus Rogers was coming into town. I was like, hey, I want to shoot some pictures for you. I'll give you everything free, no charge. Because I wanted it, when I use my gifts, I want it to be used for souls.
Right.
I want it to be used. Like, my goal is like, yeah, it's your picture, but if you're looking at it like self-promotion, it's the wrong viewpoint.
Right.
I'm looking at it like someone might see this dope picture of you and go, that's awesome. Where is that? I want to come. I'm thinking differently, right? And so, especially with things with God and things like that, I want, because there was no monetary gain.
Right.
I didn't like, there's no blessing of like, I'm going to do this and he's going to give me $1 million. Like, no, like I literally had nothing to gain out of that, but me being in the room, which I had been following you. That sounds super creepy, but I had been, we were Facebook friends before we ever met.
Right.
And then we met and we're like, hey, we're friends on Facebook. And then the relationship started from there.
Right.
So Ashley, you're a business owner, you entrepreneur, and you've played the game. How does God fit in with business?
Oh, I say that God is my CEO.
Ooh.
I read a book once that had that title, and I literally have asked God to partner with me as the CEO of my company. I really believe in like that verse that says, if you are faithful with the little, then God will make you ruler over much.
Right.
I take that to heart. Like, I feel like if I can't be faithful with $5, how is God going to trust me with 5,000? Right. Like, I feel like I act like he's watching me. Like, there's times where I'm like, okay, like, do things as unto the Lord. You know what I mean? It's because it matters. It really matters. It matters to him. It matters to me. It matters to the clients that are walking in the door. You know.
I like how you use such a small scale number. It's like $5.
Yeah.
You can't handle, because if you can't handle 5,000, you can't handle 500,000.
Exactly.
If you can't handle 500,000, you can't 5 million.
It's true. It starts with the little, and so I have seen God bring the increase over time. Over time, I will say this: there are times in my business that I have hit numbers in sales that I never thought possible.
Wow.
Consecutively, you know, it wasn't like just one. It was like and I look back and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I think one of the most amazing things about God blessing me with the business is the fact that I have time with my daughter. Like, I can never get that back. You know what I mean? And I feel like money will always come, but my time won't. You know, I can't get that time back. So I feel very appreciative that I've learned how to work smarter and not harder. You know, I've learned to literally let him take the reins and like, ooh, okay, like, I don't have to be so stressed out all the time. Like, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to flow. All the pieces are going to come together because you will run into problems, like, especially in business. You're going to run into challenges, difficulties, difficult people, you know, but it's like partnering with God and learning how to navigate those situations. Because I know I can't do it on my own. I totally mess up without him.
You know, I feel like a lot of people separate God and business.
Oh, they
do.
They
feel like they can't, like, oh, this has to do with money, so leave God out of it because God hates money, you know? That's what I feel like people say to me a lot. Like, what would you say to someone who, you know, has a hard time separating God and business? Because it's almost like God doesn't want anything to do with your business. That's how they kind of act.
No. I totally disagree with that. It's the love of money. That's the root of all evil.
That's the word that gets left out.
It's the love of it. It's that when you place that as an idol, and you can do that with anything. You can do that with a partner. You can do that with a business. You can do that with, it could be anything. The rock we talked about, praying to a rock. It's when you place that as an idol in your heart, that's when it's, you know, quote unquote, like a sin, right? But God talks about money all the time. He talks about money so much throughout the Bible. It's crazy. But I think that there's also blessings there's certain people that were blessed significantly. Like if you see like a Joseph, you know, God sent a Joseph to already prepare for the famine that was going to hit the earth. So there's a lot of people.
Took care of his whole
family. You know,
even though they betrayed him.
Right.
Even though they did him dirty, he still got elevated to a place where he could assist.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so powerful. You know, I think we can forget while we're in our storm that just because that's where you are doesn't mean you're going to stay there.
Right.
It's temporary. There's maybe some lessons, and some of it is positioning.
Right.
Some of it you have to be down here because if you weren't, you would kind of, this is just what I personally believe. I believe there's people who will walk out of you in your lowest season because they were never meant to go with you to the mountain.
Next one.
And if you got to the mountain, you would have brought Judas with you.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is very powerful.
I think that's a real complex of, like, sometimes people don't understand why they have to be broken before they're elevated, you know. And I think God breaks us of our pride. And I just am a firm believer right now, and our life should give God glory.
Right.
And if our life doesn't bring glory to God, you know, of course he loves us, but it's like, I want people to see my life and be like, man, like, look what God did through him.
Right.
You know, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Like, can anything good come out of the small town that I come from? Like, I should be an oil field worker.
Right.
I should be a teacher. Like, if you're a teacher, you're a cool job in my town.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't for me.
Right. No, that's really good. Yeah, I think that you just have to dispel the lie with the money thing, you know, but I can also understand because people value money so much. Like they're posting the photos with the yachts and the Bentleys and all of that stuff. Where,
and you're in Hollywood.
Right.
So
I'm with it all the time. I'm around it all the time. But one thing that I do know that I know is that God has called me to that place.
Right.
Because that's the place he rescued me from. And now he's sending me back into Hollywood with purpose.
Right.
And I can relate to them. See, people, not everybody can reach people in Hollywood. Not everybody can, because they haven't been there. So they'll be the ones throwing the stones, you know what I mean? Like, oh, look at that devil worshiper. Oh, I can't believe she's hanging out. And it's like, I'm at these tables with some of these people, you know, and I'm seeing like God move behind the scenes in miraculous ways that when I go to church, I don't even see that. It's like, you know, so I'm not saying nothing about, you know, I go to church. I'm just saying that the fruit, right? Like the Bible says, you'll know them by their fruit. Like I'm seeing there's evidence of God's presence from people encountering God outside of the church walls.
I believe it. I've seen it. I see it in my business because we're like pastors in the marketplace almost, you know, and the church won't recognize it a lot of times, but I've seen 300 people give their life to Christ because John Bevere preached at a secular event. I've seen it. And you know, you can't judge people. And here's another question for you. Do you feel like you've been judged because of where you're at? Do you ever experience that?
All the time. All the time. I think that Even recently, I went to this event in Orange County, and there was like some playmates, meaning like,
Like Playboy
Playboy
Bunny. Yeah.
Playboy bunny models there. There was some Desperate Housewives from the show there. There have been, I'm not going to, because if I say that, then they'll know, but there have been some pretty significant people in sports, things like that.
Right.
And, people like, they'll be telling like, oh, I can't believe like you're there. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, every time I go to these places, I see it as an assignment from God.
Right.
God already told me don't get caught up in what they're doing.
Right.
God already told me that. I'm very fully aware. Like, I don't want to go back to that place and do what they're doing. I've been down that road.
Right.
But I have an answer to a better way of living.
Right.
Why would I not want to share that with them?
Right.
I was them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, first of all, I cannot judge because that used to be me.
Yeah.
Right? A part of that way of living was how I lived.
Yeah.
But somebody was kind enough and gracious enough to share Jesus and his love with me.
Right.
How could I not go and extend that to somebody else?
Right. It's funny. It's like the people who say, oh, I'm going to get into heaven because I'm a good person. I can't relate with you because I needed Jesus.
So bad.
Like, my life was wild. I did some crazy things. Like, I know I'm not getting in there on my own good merit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you get the people who aren't ministering, that don't care about souls, and they judge and they think the worst of everybody, not the best of, hey, God's using Ashley in her environment because that's where she's called to. It's like church goes beyond the four walls.
Absolutely.
Church is not a club. It's not a country club. Like, that's how the Pharisees viewed it. Like, going to church ain't getting you into heaven.
Right.
Like, not knocking church, but I'm saying, like, that's not a qualification to getting in the gates.
Right. That's good. I think that something that I'm just kind of like, just through this interview and talking to you, that I'm realizing about, I want to go harder for Jesus now, because I'm really getting it. Like, I really want to show up for the souls.
Right.
Like, my heart has always been there for the souls. Right. But I've been so afraid of the church's judgment that I've almost stopped myself from entering into these places that I know God has called me to.
Right.
Like, it's taking me a long time to get here and be free of that.
Right.
But it's like, now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, man, Luke, you know what? I want to go harder for God. I want to go, like, come on, like, let me at him, you know?
Yeah.
Let's
you
go.
Off the leash. Yeah, but it's like, blessed are the persecuted, but we don't think the persecution comes from the church.
Wow, mic drop. Wow.
It does. It seems most of the time it comes from the church. And it's unfortunate, but you almost have to just tune them out, because who did Jesus beef with the most?
Right.
The Pharisees, the religious people. That's who he gassed on. That's who he smoked the most.
That's when he flipped the tables over. Yes. Right.
Like, and then he tells the adulterous woman, like, go and sin no more. Where are your accusers at? Because I punked them already.
Right. Oh, man. I love that. I think that's something that, like, so many people think Jesus is like, oh, kumbaya, let's just go, peace, love, and he is loving, but he's also a force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
Like, I mean, who does that? He started a revolution.
Yeah.
Like, he went against all culture, all tradition. Like, he broke all of that up. Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
To think we have a hero that we look up to that went against something that was against all odds. You know what I mean? Like he didn't care. Like, he the last thing he cared was about people's views of him.
Right.
Because if he did, he would have never done what he did.
I was reading something the other day where it was like, are you sure you want to go back to that town? Like, we were just like almost stoned there. He's like, let's go back.
I've read that too. Yeah, the other day. Yes.
Like, okay, like, let's go back.
Yes,
Jesus was about that life. Like,
wow.
And I feel like we have to be okay with facing persecution and going back in there, because God's not going to care that so-and-so was talking to us in a way that we didn't like it because they didn't agree with our life that we were living for him.
Right.
We're in obedience to him and to God, and not to people's opinions. And I think the best thing anyone could ever do is get free from the opinions of man.
That's good. I feel like I'm getting free as I'm talking about this because I've already experienced a little bit of freedom. But now I'm really realizing like God is speaking to me even through what you're saying, you know, and I'm like, I just really want to go after this.
Yeah.
I know where God's called me to. I've just been afraid to fully step out in it.
You know, I'm glad you're saying this because I just, I want the podcast doesn't even have an exact name yet. And I was thinking real talk because I want it to be genuine. And I think a lot of people are not stepping out in their true calling because they're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And people are afraid of success. People are afraid of failure.
Mm.
Both equal the same result of not even trying.
Right.
And so it's an isolated way to just make you stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then people fall into depression.
Right.
Because they're afraid to chase their dreams, but yet they're not living in their purpose. So they're buried in depression.
That's good.
It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And we gotta break that. And then that's where the faith comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I respect this lady in my organization. She has a crazy testimony. And she told me the other day, we have an event and Les Brown's going to be there. There's some huge names are going to be there. But she was like, I'm going no matter what. Even if my job fires me, I'm going.
Wow, that's
And I'm not going to, if like you have that faith, I'm not going to tell you don't do that.
Right.
She said today or last night she found out that they were actually doing something that day where she was going to get paid leave.
Whoa.
Instead of her getting fired, now she has paid leave to even go.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that was faith.
Yeah.
Like God knew, like I gotta catch this girl because she's about to jump, you know?
Wow.
And she has such a cool story, and I kind of want to share it. But she was working with us for a while, and she quit, and she disappeared for 2 months. And we found out her best friend was murdered. It was a crazy story.
Jeez.
So she was struggling with anxiety and depression, and she was on paid leave from her job at that point, and like she wasn't functioning. And she texted me one day. She goes, I want to get baptized, Coach. What do I do? And I'm like, all we need is a swimming pool. So we end up like saying, well, let me get the details together and I'll get back to you. I've not seen her in 2 months. We were out and about, and on the way home, God was like, go to Walmart. I'm like, I don't need anything at Walmart. I got groceries. I'm good. And I keep telling my wife, I'm like, I just feel like I got to go to Walmart. Like, just drop me off. And I was like, you go get Panda Express because I'm hungry. I'm going to go get some groceries that we don't need, and we'll pick up a couple of things. I walk into Walmart like a heat-seeking missile and walk into her.
Wow, that was God setting you up with her.
She looks at me. Because it was like a disbelief for me. I'm like, is that her? And she's with her grown kids. And they're all play fighting in Walmart and, joking around with each other. And she looks at me, and her kid's mouth dropped. And her son was like, there's no way this is a coincidence. Yep. And she runs over to me and she starts weeping in Walmart.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And I just kind of edified her and was like, God sees you. He knows your prayers. Because at that point, I'm like, this
you knew because he said go to Walmart.
Yeah, like I can't even make this stuff up, right? This is DFW Metroplex. You know how many Walmarts are here?
Wow.
And God's like, and they don't live on that side of town. That's not even the cllosest Walmart to me. I just happen to be on that side of town.
Yeah.
And it was so funny, but I walked through walked right into him, just being spirit-led, not even knowing.
Right.
And so, anyways, that story even gets crazier. Because she came back, she had an award that we had to give her in front of everybody. We announced it in front of our office, right? And 8 people raised their hand and go, we want to get baptized with her.
Wow. That is so awesome.
So we planned the event. And then the day of, it gets canceled. No joke. It gets canceled. The people's house who we were going to do it at, it's a big house. We could have a lot of people there. And so they end up canceling it. And she calls me. She's mad. Like, I want to give my life to Jesus. So she ends up being frustrated, talking to me about it. And I'm like, look, it's going to work out. We're going to figure this out. Don't worry. You're going to heaven. We're going to figure this out. And so we have a party the next day, a mansion party. It's even bigger house. It was already a big house, an even bigger house, even epic scenery. There was over 300 people here at this party. So it went from it would have been like a small, 20 people gathering to, anyways. The guy who's preaching, his name is Steve Weatherford. the NFL player, and he just pulls up a lawn chair and sits in this mansion party. They're rolling cigars and smoking and drinking beer, and everybody's partying. He's like, I'm going to tell you about Jesus.
Wow.
And he pulls his chair up and he starts talking about Jesus. And about 30 minutes goes by. All these people give their life to Christ. And he goes, we're going to baptize people in the pool if you want to get baptized.
Wow. She had an opportunity.
Everybody who was supposed to get baptized
did
today is
there. That's so cool. I love that.
So it went so big, and then went on all their social medias. And it just showed me, I went from a hurting lady who was broken.
Small seed. Wow.
And it went so big. And it was just the faith of a mustard seed.
Like, that's what it reminds me of. Because I'm thinking, like, it started off as this one little seed and then grew into this big thing where tons of people are getting baptized now.
Yeah. We don't know what all happens. Like, because these people, their lives have been changed. I have watched them grow and completely change their mentalities and all that. And that's from being the church in business.
Right. That's so good. That's what, and God is really doing a new thing, you know, and I will say this, I think that I am excited because I have seen that there are churches now that are like, we're wrong. We've been wrong. We've been telling people not to get involved with politics. We've been telling people not to get involved with the entertainment industry. We've been telling people not to get into, production, podcasts and all this stuff because it's, whatever. Right. And now they're thinking, man, we're wrong. I've been hearing a lot of churches say that, like, now they're encouraging people, run for mayor, do what, get involved, show up, go to the school meetings and all that stuff. For so long, the church has been separated from things and we haven't been able to make an impact in the, the spheres of influence that we're called to.
The Seven Mountains.
The Seven Mountains.
It's funny. You talk about that. I was just talking to Patrick Bet-David. I don't know if you know who that is, but runs a YouTube channel called Valuetainment, and I was talking to him the other night, and I feel this call for the Seven Mountains, like media, politics, religion, business. Like the ones that I feel led to. There's other ones, but because we haven't spoken up, that's why every movie that's out's demonic. Right. That's why it's because they're self-promoting. They're going after it. They don't care about glory for God. They don't care. They're just going. And I feel like the churches just kind of put their hands up and just prayed for $1 million. Right. It's just such a lazy, non-ambitious, non-go-getter, I'm going to do anything for the kingdom, but I'll let everyone else do it. I'm just waiting for Jesus to come back. Right.
And then on the contrary, look at the one movie actually two, Passion of the Christ. Yeah. Boom. I think it grossed, I can't remember, but it was like box office crazy ratings, right? Yeah. And then recently Sound of Freedom. Yes. Boom. Two movies that have stood for God because somebody actually walked out their calling in those industries.
612 million.
612 million for Passion of the Christ.
Let's see Sound of Freedom.
I'd like to know those numbers because that's
249 million. And that was something that was fought from being...
That was from being in any of the major productions companies. Yep, that's right. So point being that because of those people who did step out in faith, who did stand for God, I forget the actor's name, the one that played the Passion of the Christ, but Caviezel. Yeah. He has standards. Like he won't do certain things on set. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but they respect them. They have to. Yeah. They have to.
Well, they blackballed him.
They blackballed him now, but at the time, when he was bringing in the dough there, like they had to.
And it's so cool to see him because he's genuine. Like you can tell he really loves the Lord.
His eyes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can tell he's very serious about it. And I think that's how we can all learn something. Like they say, if you can talk to someone and they never talk about Jesus, like they're not for real. Because when you're in it, it just comes out of you.
It oozes, yeah. It's who you are. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Yeah. So if it's not in your heart, you probably, won't be speaking about it. And if it is, we will. So depending on what it is that's coming out, but it's true. Yeah.
So what would you say because I feel called to this, to Hollywood and production, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this right now. It's like we're called to do this. And if we don't speak up, someone else will. Right. And what would you say to someone who's like on the fence of like, maybe they don't feel strong enough to even be in the industry, or how would you safeguard them for the next level?
Yeah. Well, I would say this. I would say there's really only one you, right? We all have we don't even have the same fingerprints. Think about that. Right. There's not one of us that have the same fingerprint. Right. So there's only one you. There's only one unique you. And if you can't be you, somebody else can't be you.
Right.
You got to be the one that is you, right? So I think that as long as you are, trying your best to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, then all things will be added to your life.
Right.
That's the answer right there. It's right there in the Bible. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness.
Right.
Like it'll all be added. Right. So I feel like there's really no right or wrong way.
Right.
But what I will say is just get started. Don't tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym. Tomorrow I'm going to start this podcast. Tomorrow, if it's always tomorrow, it'll never arrive. Like you got to just get started. You just got to do it.
Right. I love that.
And you're going to make mistakes along the way. You know what I mean? I used to think I was a trolla. Like I used to draw my lips. Like then I thought, and then I hung out with the black people and my hair was braided and crazy. You know what I mean? And it's like, yes, there's going to be some identity crisis along the way.
Right.
Just, it's okay. Own it.
Right.
Own it. Right.
It's so funny. I used to have braids and stuff too.
See?
I look Puerto Rican.
If you ask my friends, we grew up in the hood. Like Snoop Dogg calls it Mini Compton, where I came from.
Right.
Like you will get shot on the corner if you look at people crazy, like wrong. Like it's not the best area on the east side. At least if you cross over the train tracks on the west, you might be all right. So I grew up in not the best neighborhood. But the point is this: identity crisis might come. Right. You might fail forward. You know what I mean? But eventually, if you don't take any steps, you're not going to even know. Like you can't find your true authentic self.
Right. Because you evolve. Yeah. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago. Absolutely or even 5 or even maybe even 2 years ago.
No.
And I think that's like have the end result in mind, like who, like your gravestone. I like work it back. Like who do you want to be?
Way there.
Who do you want to be when that happens? Like okay, I'd like to be XYZ and start reverse engineering to go towards that goal. Right. Because it's like, okay, well maybe I want to be more loving. Okay. Let me work on that now. I mean, and by the time you're getting things down, like I didn't wait this year to go to the gym on the 1st. I was like, no, it was like middle of December. I'm like, I'm going now.
Right,
I'm not going to wait till the 1st. Like it's not going to conveniently make you awesome on the 1st. And now you're brand new. It's like, no, trial and error. You're going to go 3 days this week, then you're going to go 4 the next week, then you're going to mess up on the 3rd week, and then all of a sudden you're back
restart.
In the group. So but I love it. And even you called me Nike boy the other day. You were like, just do it.
You did.
Like I love it. I'm so thankful because it is a push for us to step into who God's called us to be.
Yes.
On a whole other level. And you're in these judgment zones where I feel like you have overcome. You're not even tempted with the things that used to maybe tempt you, and you're being a light, and no one else can take that from you.
Nobody. No, it's true. And the days that I feel where I'm like, God, I'm falling short, you know what I mean? I know his forgiveness is right there. Like it's just, I will say that I just love God so much, and it feels so amazing to love somebody so much, and also to know that his love is right there with me. Like it's just incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go back to the old ways or anything. It's just, there was a worship song and it says, it never gets old. And I think that's true with God. Like it never gets old for me. Right. It's just always like new for me with him.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard a saying that said, what in hell do you want? Like, what would you want?
Right.
Like, we wouldn't want anything.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think God's no is like holding us back.
Wow.
And it's not.
That's so good.
It's protecting. It's like, hey, you shouldn't get in that relationship. You shouldn't do X, Y, Z. Hey, this is going to waste your time for years. Hey, this is going to be helpful for you. Do it. But I don't want to. I'm scared. Do it scared. It's funny. Whenever I got saved, God immediately told me to move. And I think people want to be Lord of their life and not have Jesus guide them.
Right.
And it's like you can't hold on to it. And because of that, I met people. I connected people. It put me in a right environment to grow, stepped out. So I'm thankful for God. Like people have this like nice God in their head where he never corrects them. God would punk me. He'd be like, oh, you're going to be like Jonah?
Oh, wow.
Like, that's what he told me.
Yeah, good. No, I think with men too, because I think that I hope and pray that there is a generation of voices of men that can talk to men like men.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah.
I think we do. I listened to John Bevere's message the other day. I went to Ocean's Church and he went there. He was like, I don't watch porn. He was like, I had a porn addiction. I don't watch porn. Yeah. He was like, I don't want to commit adultery on my wife. Like, right. He was talking about some real issues of life, right, like right. real things that men need to hear from other men. You know what I mean? It's 100%. Like we could be our wives like, oh, I can't, don't watch, and trying to control and manipulate and do all these things. But it's like when you hear it from a man and a man saying, I've been there, I've right. overcome, and I'm right. not doing it anymore because I'm going to walk in God's ways. Right. Like, I think that is so needed and necessary in this time. Right. So I'm praying for you, Luke, that God would raise you up to be a mighty man of valor and to be a voice into this generation and to speak boldly for God and to use you in such powerful ways that I just see God opening so many doors for you because you're stepping out in faith and obedience. I feel like God is saying it's so even obedience that you're being faithful right now. And I'm praying that your voice would be a force to be reckoned with. The anointed would be upon you, and that every single word would hit the hearts and the souls and the spirits of the people listening to you. Amen. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
So, Ashley, final question. Who is the number one celebrity that you'd like to get saved?
So, I would say that I'm going to have to go with Fergie.
Okay.
Fergalicious. Fergalicious. I've just always been a really big fan of her. Like, but later on, like after she left the Black Eyed Peas, it's crazy because I became a fan of her later. But the reason why is because I literally was like back in my past life when I was like dancing and doing some wild things. I was literally sitting in her driveway, and my friend went into her house, and they were like, there was a couple of them. They're like, do you want to come in? It's like the Black Eyed Peas. It's like the girl from the Black Eyed Peas. And I didn't know who it was at the time. Right. Like, now I'm putting two and together. Like, that was Fergie, dude. Like, oh, my gosh. Like, she's just, I think she's so creative. Like, her persona and the way she's brilliant. Like, she is a brilliant person. I love the way that she's branded herself. I like how unique she is. I like that she steps out in who she is, but I really would love to see her love God.
That's awesome.
I know God loves her for sure. So
you've been praying for her.
I've been praying for her for many years, many years. There's actually quite a few celebrities that God will actually really put on my heart, and Fergie is one of them. But I want to ask you, who's yours?
I like to go like all in. I think Criss Angel. And the reason why is because I want to say his mother was a witch. I'm just really big in the people who the devil stole coming back. Or me stealing them back for God.
Oh, I like that.
Like, you get the Katy Perry's, the people who were on 700 Club and Beyonce, who grew up in the church and then used the gifts. It's like, no, like, these are God's children that just need to come home. And so with Criss, I actually have, in our old church, we were rebuilding it, and so we had carpet put on the floor, but before that, it was on concrete. So I wrote on a magic marker Criss Angel's name, Criss Angel will be saved here.
Wow.
And I put it on a certain spot on the floor, so when he comes and gets saved in that church, and this is in Vegas, when he gets saved in that church, I'm like, cut up with the carpet. Right there. Magic trick.
Love it. That's good. That's a good one. I think that's a good one. Yeah. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, it's I can't tell you like he's my idol or I look up to. It's like, no, like, that was someone God laid on my heart.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to pray for people that God has,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people out there. Look, if you had one more, who would it be?
If I had one more?
Yeah, if you could get two people into heaven.
Oh, let me think about that. Another celebrity. I'm gonna go with my own personal one because Fergie's somebody that's in my heart. But I would have to say, let me think. Oh, that's okay. I got one. Quentin Tarantino.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Producer.
Yeah, he's a big time producer. I think that I think that his, I don't know what's my obsession with brilliant people and their brains and creativity, but I think that if he was to get saved, I could see the Hollywood, because he's considered one of the top producers in all of Hollywood.
Right.
Matter of fact, he had said he's on his 9th movie. He said that he's only going to do 10.
Really?
Could you imagine if he got saved and did his last one for God?
Wow. You know, he has like this super creative way to do gory scenes.
Very much.
Like they're creative, but they're not like, oh, I can't watch this. Like some things are like, it's more of
It's
like, that's
like,
crazy. It's like fake, but it's cool, but it's still
blow
really,
torches and like, well,
No, I like, he's a good producer. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, and I think it's vital that influential people get saved.
I do too.
Because there's so many souls attached to those people. Yeah, whether negatively or positively. And it doesn't matter if you want to be a role model or you don't. You still are.
Yep.
And you're accountable. That's the thing.
That's good.
You're accountable to the man upstairs on what you do with those gifts, because he gave us this life.
Right.
And our life is designed to give him glory. And when you give God glory, you allow him to bless who you are, who he designed you to be. Like, Quentin Tarantino is supposed to be a director. That wasn't, God's like, oh, you're supposed to be a postman. Like, but what if it was for his glory?
Right.
What would Passion of the Christ 2 be with Caviezel and Quentin Tarantino?
Wow. Wow. Good.
But we as Christians have to do a better job of stewarding the celebrities who get saved.
I agree. Yeah, you got to be graceful and gentle. And truthful as well. But yeah, it's very sad. Yeah. It's very sad that even the church judges them for where they're at now. Right. And you can't do that. Right. You cannot do that.
Right. No. Yeah. No, they're new converts. Like all heaven rejoices when someone gets saved, and all Pharisees throw stones.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. Anyways, thank you, Ashley. Yes. I'm serious. Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. I know God has some big doors for you. I watch you. I love seeing you in the houses, in the mansion parties, on the boulevard, on the glamour shows, like everything. It's like, yo, she's out there. Yeah. And I love watching God use you.
Thank you.
So, but thanks for jumping on, and guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. God bless.